Hello, everyone. Today I am going to cover an important topic that is going to make foundation of your business career. And that topic is know your customers. And trust me, if you don't know your customer, your game is over. No matter what business role you are in. You are working in marketing, you're working in sales, maybe in business development, or in founder's office, or you are working as business generalist. It doesn't matter. Your job starts with knowing who your customer is. Okay, let's understand why this is so important. Let me break that down for you. Imagine if you are in marketing, your manager says, "Hey, we need a new Facebook ad." Now tell me, can you write a good ad without knowing who you are writing it for? Of course not, right? Or suppose you are in business development and your goal is to book client meetings. Now, will you randomly reach out to anyone to book those meetings? No, right? You will target only those people who are actually likely to buy your product. See, knowing your customer is like having a Google map always with you. Without it, you are just lost. That is why today we will learn a simple but powerful framework called the 3W framework of B2B. What, why, and who. This will ultimately lead to complete understanding of your customers. And once you start following this framework, it doesn't matter which company you join or which industry you begin working in, this will work everywhere. This framework asks you these three basic but critical questions. What are you selling and what problem are you solving? Why should the customer buy from you? And then the third, who is your right customer? Sounds simple, right? Then this what will lead to why, and this why will lead to who. Again, I am emphasizing on this point. If you are not clear on these three, then all your BD, marketing, and sales effort will feel random. So let's talk about what are you selling. Now it is intuitive that if you don't know what you are selling, then how will you know who your customer is and who are not? So let's understand this through an easy example. If you're selling sweets, then you know your customer is a sweet lover. But if you're selling healthy food like salads, then your customer will not be sweet lover but health conscious people. Can you see the difference? Different products attract different kinds of customers. So depending on what kind of offering you have, you will attract a specific kind of customers. Whenever I ask this question to people, what are you selling? They start discussing about the features of their products. Now that is not the correct way to say what you are selling. Okay, let's understand this from a simple example again. In the 90s, whenever we used to travel by train, one of the things our papa and uncles would do was get off the train when it stopped and fill their water bottles from the tap. At that time, water bottle was not very common. Nowadays, you get water bottles from railway hawkers at stations and in trains as well. Now, if I ask you, what are they selling? In that case, your answer will be very straightforward. You will say they sell packaged water bottles. You will not say something very complex written on their bottle. They are selling water with ultrafiltration, reverse osmosis, ultraviolet treatment, and ozonization. So, similar to that, when you are talking about your company's product, you also need to present it in a simple way. Now, when we talk about what a company is selling, I also ask you to think about it from the customer's perspective. Like what pain points your company's product is solving for them. So, again, going back to the water bottle example, I remember my papa coming back with an empty bottle because sometimes the tap was not working at that station, or even if it was working, he said the water was not clean, so he didn't fill it, as drinking dirty water may make us sick. So we get that two big problems These packaged water bottles solved for train travelers. One was hygiene, and the second was availability. The point here is that when you are thinking about what you or your company is selling, try to explain in a very simple way, and along with that, also talk about what major points you are solving. I have run my startup called Trillbit, and this is one of the biggest learning I got because we have a very deep tech product. And when we were explaining it to venture capitalists or our customers, potential customers, they always get confused like what this take is all about. And when we simplified through one example, then they started understanding it clearly. Now let's learn this from a company example. Postman. Postman, maybe you are knowing it is a SaaS company. It started in India. Today, it is used by more than 25 million developers worldwide and has over half a million companies as their customers. And the company is valued at more than $5 billion. So if I ask you, can you go and check what Postman actually does? And if you will say something like this, Postman supports multiple API types, protocols beyond just REST, such as GraphQL, SOAP, WebSocket, and gRPC. It will just spin my head, right? You know the real what for Postman is? It helps developers design, test, and share APIs quickly and easily. So you can compare both what I said earlier and what actually Postman does in a simple way. You now know that Postman has something to do with API development. Now, here again, I want you to take a pause and ask you to think about the pain points they are solving for their customers. You will say, what are you saying? Why so much confusion? Postman offers a tool for building APIs in an easy manner. It is clear. Then why I need to again think about the problem the company is solving? So think like this. Even if you know what you are selling, do you really know who your customer is? Postman is not trying to sell to every company in the world. Why? Because any product, no matter how good, is not for everyone. A product only makes sense if it solves a real problem for someone. Like if you have back pain, you will not go to gym, right? Even if it is the best gym in your town, you will simply go to a hospital. The same thing applies here. If a company is struggling with API development, they will go to Postman rather than going to Microsoft or Apple. So a good business person never just think about what he is selling. He always thinks in terms of what problem it solves. That gives him a lot of clarity. Now we came to our second W, why. And here basically you should know why customers will buy from you. And somewhere it is closely related to the pain points you are solving. Now let's come back to our train example. Why do we buy bottled water? Because we don't want to go through the hassle of getting down to the station and standing in a queue to fill water. And we don't want to fall sick by drinking station water. We feel safer drinking the bottled water. So, for safety and comfort, we buy a bottle even when the station water is free. However, when we discuss why customers will buy in a B2B scenario, this why needs to be tangible and you can quantify it. In B2B, it really happens कि मन किया और ले लिया. Think in terms of savings or earnings or improving some key business metrics that your product brings for your customers. And when multiple people are involved in deciding to purchase your product, in that case, you need to understand that there can be different reasons or whys for different people. And one thing, always remember, customers always have alternatives. They can choose a competitor, try to build something in house, or even decide to manage things on their own. That is why your why has to be very strong. So let's talk about the Postman example. Before Postman, API testing was slow and painful. Developers had to work with the command line, use curl, or write custom scripts every single time they wanted to test something. It was repetitive with errors and wasted hours and hours. And with Postman, everything changed. Developers suddenly save hours of work that used to go into manual testing. Software teams can collaborate more easily because they can share APIs instead of passing around scripts. And because the process is smoother, errors are reduced dramatically. This is why Postman makes API development faster, easier, and far more collaborative than any other option. Now, if you sell to developers, they will probably want to buy Postman because it is very easy to use and helps them make more APIs faster. Now, here is the next catch. In a big company, most developers don't pay for Postman. Instead, the boss or a senior tech person decides that the developer should use it. They choose it because it can help save time and money for the company. If using Postman saves more money than it costs for the licenses, then the company will buy Postman. And that is the real reasons why customers buy Postman. Now, there are two additional things here in B2B. First, it looks like a company buys from another company, but actually, people buy from people. Second, once you know buying is human, then you really need to know deeply why somebody will buy your product. What is there for that person? If you know that, it gives you more clarity. So, in Postman's case, the tech head or CTO makes this decision, but he will not use it. But he is buying it for his team because it will help him to release the product within the timeline. And that is one of his key responsibilities as head of IT or head of technology. Once you know the what and why, the final step is to be clear about the who. Because if you are not clear on who you are selling to, you will end up pitching to the wrong company and people and wasting a lot of time and energy. Here, I want to take the example of Zoho. When they made their CRM, they thought they would compete with giants like Salesforce, but they struggled closing large enterprises as their customers. But when they started offering to small and medium companies and startups, they were happy to use Joe CRM for its simplicity and less cost. So, if you are happy that you have a good product and you know why customers will buy from you, but then you are targeting the wrong customer segment, still there is high chance that you can fail. And that's where who you will sell becomes very important. Let's again talk about Postman. The right customers for Postman are not just random companies and random people, but the development team of software companies who work directly with APIs. So, Postman will target companies who do take development and specifically have to deal with APIs. Now, once they identify the right companies to target, they also need to see who in those companies will buy from them. So they reach out to the decision makers, such as engineering managers, CTOs, and product leaders, who prioritize speed, collaboration, and error reduction across the development team. So, whether it is Postman or Zoho, the who is never just a broad audience. It is always specific individuals in specific roles within particular type of companies. Now in B2B, the who happens at two levels. First, you need to identify the right companies you want to target. Second, within those companies, you must find the right people or job titles who actually make the buying decisions for your product. And this is how the concept of an ideal customer profile, ICP, is built. And in B2B, an ICP is always made up of two parts. On the company side, you consider attributes such as the industry they belong to, their employee size, annual revenue, geographic location, and growth stage. These factors tell you whether the company as a whole is the right for your solution or not. On the people side, you focus on attributes like the specific job titles you need to reach out. For example, if you're running a company like Postman, your ideal people might be CTOs and engineering managers. If you are Zoho CRM, your ideal people might be people heading sales. These roles are the ones who make purchasing decisions. Now, when you combine the right companies and the right people within them, you achieve complete clarity on exactly who your product is for. That is the real power of defining the who. Now, let's discuss why we have kept this order: what, why, and who. It is simple. If you don't know what you are selling, you cannot explain why anyone should care for your offering. And if you don't know why, you cannot define who the right customer is. That is why you must always follow this sequence: what, why, who. Once you get this clarity, every role, BD, marketing, sales, or even a founder's office role, becomes 10x easier.